Hi there, this is going to be quite a short video. I'm not quite sure how long it'll take, but what I'm going to do is show you really basic sifting of one color, and we're going to use white. This is the white we're going to use. I love white. White, I know, white looks like it can be quite boring, but actually it's really beautiful in enameling because the oxides that come off the copper sort of mix up with the constituents of the enamel, and they can give some beautiful greens. So it's very subtle. It's a subtle look, but actually it's really, really lovely, so especially if you're going for something that's quite minimalist. And we're going to use this stencil. This is a chicken. Screeching, probably for screeching for food or screeching for something. I have some chickens, some rescue chickens. They're ex-battery farm chickens, and they do a lot of screeching. They get very spoiled as soon as they leave the battery farm, and they're always looking for treats. Anyway, so I'm going to use this stencil and use white, and then we're going to fire it a couple of times, and I'll talk you through it. So let's get on with it. This is, now it's kind of awkward because the camera is to my left. I'm not going to use too much. You don't want to use too much enamel in your sifter, because when you have loads in, it just sort of compacts it down to the bottom, and it's really hard for it to go through the sieve. And I'm using a very high mesh. This is 200 for this. I don't use 200 all that often, but I'm going to use it for this video and see how it looks. And what we want to do is just try and get a couple of coats of this chicken, and then see where we are. So I'm trying to do it as evenly as possible, and I'm not worrying too much about the fact that it's going outside the stencil. And it's quite a light coat. I have just about covered up the copper. I can't really see the copper underneath it. And also lifting stencils can be tricky. I use a palette knife. This is just an old oil painting palette knife that I stole from my mother to lift stencils up, because I have quite a wobbly hand. So here we go. Okay, so far so good. What I usually do is okay, yeah, I just lift it up and sort of try and shove it over. Easier said than done. And excuse me, so there we have our chicken screeching, and these bits, I don't want these bits here on the edges, so I usually just get a soft brush and just brush them off. So what we're going to have is a white chicken with a copper background. So as you can see, it looks very nice and coppery. Let me just zoom in a bit there. But obviously the oxides will come up. I just about got the chicken on. Its feather is sticking off there. I probably could have moved it a bit, but I think I'm just going to leave it as it is for the moment. And I'll fire that, and we'll see how it comes out. I've just taken this chicken out of the kiln, and you can see that the copper has gone very black. That's basically all this black is copper oxide. So it was in at 800 degrees, and this is how it looks when it's come out. Now it's really, really hot still. The other thing you'll notice here, if I hold it at that angle, you can see that the enamel has this orange peel texture. It means it's fused, but not fused to a very glass-like finish. There are various reasons why people do that. I don't use it in finished pieces very often, but some people do, and it can look really, really nice. I just, when I know that I'm enameling, going to be firing something several times, the first layer I do, I always slightly underfire it. It just means that it doesn't get burned off really quickly. So I underfire a lot of different colors like this, especially reds and oranges, because they burn off really quickly. I'll do a video on reds and oranges actually. Anyhow, so those are the copper oxides, and you can see they're coming off the back. already. They just flip off, they just sort of ping off. And you want to keep this away from your powdered enamels because all that little black stuff will go in. In fact, all my enamels have little bits and bobs of black, except the ones that I use for fine silver. But anyhow, we're going to wait for that to cool, and then what we're going to have to do is take some of this black off, because I don't want it to be totally black. I do want some of the copper showing through. So we might just take a little scrubber to it. Right, see you in a minute. Weirdly, the camera shut off while I was talking. Anyhow, so I've given this more of a scrub. What I was saying is that you need to scrub off the edges, because they will, and that's after every single time it's been in the kiln, because otherwise those little black bits will chip off and into your lovely expensive enamels. So this is as far as I'm going to go with this. I'm going to dry it off. I'm going to give it one more little bit of a rinse, dry it off, and then I'm going to put the second coat of white onto the chicken. Here we go. I've put the stencil back on as best I can so that it's where it should be. And I'm going to use my 200 mesh sifter again because it's easier. I should do a little video on this particle size as well, because particle size is boring, but you need to know it. Sadly, it's quick though. Anyway, the higher the mesh sifter, the smaller the particles are that go through it. And the smaller the particles are, the more easily they'll cling to the stencil. And so when you're moving the stencil, they fall off less easily, causing you less irritation. And hopefully you don't have to keep on redoing it. Okay, that's the basic premise, but I will give a demonstration on that. Here we go. Hold the breath. Okay, success. Again, I'll just wipe off these little white bits that we don't want. And it'll go in for its second firing. I'm going to show you the kiln I use as well, actually. Here it is, FCO. It's a great kiln, I really like it. And in we go. I'm going to put that one in for, I did that for 1.5 minutes the last time. So I'll put that one in for, I'm going to put that in for 1 minute and 40 seconds. Would help if I actually started it, but there we go. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So I'll see if you can see it. Ooh. Hey, oh, there we go. I'm going to put it down so you can see it better. Like this. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Again, it's gone black around the edges. And what I'm going to do here is lift it up. You shouldn't touch it for about 10 seconds or so after it's come out of the kiln, because it will have fused, but it'll still be in its kind of flow state. And if you just gouged it with this, you leave a big divot in it. So that's it. Now, it's much shinier, even with just 10 seconds longer. As you can see, it has much less of an orange peel texture. And it's more kind of glassy looking. So there we are. I'm going to leave that to cool, or I might just go ahead and do the dipping it into cold water. You could dip stuff into cold water. It's just it can crack your enamel if you're not careful. If it goes into really cold water and it has just come out of the kiln, it can really crack it. You might be looking for that kind of technique. It can look really nice. Actually, I've cracked some stuff like that, and it's come out really, really nice. But if you want to be really careful, you should just leave it to cool on its own. And I sometimes put that big old iron on it, and not only does it flatten it out a bit, but it actually, because this is steel, it's iron, it sucks some of the heat away from the copper, so it just cools a little bit faster. There we go, and you can see the copper oxides coming off. They're sort of pinging off. You see that? Right, I'm going to do a third layer very shortly. I've just sprayed the back of this. You'll notice that I only did one side. I'm going to do the back as well, because otherwise it'll warp. This, I've sprayed on a little bit of Clear Fire, which is kind of an organic compound that's slightly sticky. And I'm going to sift on the counter enamel onto the back, which will stick to this. And then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to do more sifting on the front. So I'll just show you that. I'm going to use an 80 mesh sifter for this, just so that more enamel comes through. Okay, there we go. I'm not worrying too much about the look, I just want it to function well. That's fine. You don't want tons of it on the back either, because otherwise it will drop off in clumps. Okay, as you can see, it hasn't dropped off. Could put this guy back here. I'm going to go back to my 200 mesh sifter, and I'm going to cover the whole thing. White. And I'm hoping not to make a total fool out of myself with this. I think that's probably enough. Let's go and fire that and see how it ends up looking. I'll zoom in a bit so you can still see the chicken through it, but we shall see now once it's fired what it looks like. I'm going to give you the big reveal from underneath this iron. Ooh, there we have our chicken. And as you can see, that the third layer was really light, and it's gone this kind of bluish color. It's got a little bit of water on it, and I'm going to give it another coat of white, and then I think I may just leave it as it is. So that's it so far, and that's gone quite orange peel textured. There's the back. The back is that's definitely orange peel. The back is good and solid, and I think I'll put one more coat of white and then we'll see how that looks. Make a decision about it from there. Here we go. One more layer. Unless I change my mind, but we'll see. It just looks a little bit unfinished, so I want to add a bit more, and we'll see how that looks. I'll be back. Okay, let's switch that off. Whoops. And here, now this will change color slightly just because when stuff comes out of the kiln it's really hot, and I'm not going to touch it just yet in case I interfere with the enamel, but sorry, my tripod is getting stuck in the stool there, but I'm pretty happy with it. When it cools down I'll just put another little quick picture up of it. I'm happy, yeah, good. Here's our little chicken, and yeah, that's just a short video on a very basic one color enameling. So that was fired, how many times? 1, 2, 4 times. So I hope you like it, and I hope you got something, you learned something from it.